All right, everybody, we're just going to take a few minutes here to let people in the room. So we'll just give it a few minutes before we get our town hall today started. So we're just going to wait a couple seconds to let everybody in the room. A reminder that if you have any questions that you've been saving as we announce the town hall, please feel free to drop them in the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. That will be open the entire time. We'll give it a couple minutes as people are continuing to come into the Zoom room, and then we will get started with our town hall. Okay, Blake Hogan, CEO of Bunker Labs. I will let you take it from here.
All right, Liz, thank you. Thank you to everybody listening in today. We're here with Navy veteran and successful serial entrepreneur, Fred Deese. I want to thank Fred for joining us today. I feel like every time I'm on this interview series, our All-In series, the world has changed. I grew up about 30 minutes outside of Minneapolis. I went to University of Minnesota and was in that neighborhood throughout college. And the reality is racism exists in our country. It's existed for a long time, and racism has existed since we've been a race. I think as members of the military community, we have an obligation to serve our fellow humans. What happened in Minneapolis was not right. I believe that entrepreneurship has a place to play in this space to uplift people and give them the ability to create wealth and to create jobs and to create the impact that they want to create. I think it's important to just be transparent and honest. Like, look, I'm a white kid who grew up with a single mom in a blue collar home. But entrepreneurship has changed my life. The Marine Corps changed my life, and I believe that we can help other people do that. So I'm really honored today to have Navy veteran Frederick Deese on the line today. We've been working together on a couple of things in the background that I'm excited to share. We'll hopefully be coming to a screen near you soon. So, but before we get into it, I'd like to just thank Fred for coming on today, and I'd love for you to give a bit of an intro, and then we'll jump in.
No problem. Thank you, Blake. I really appreciate you and your team pulling this together. I am so honored to have the opportunity to be part of this town hall and to be able to speak, directly to your staff and your subscribers and others who are tuned in. I don't think my mom is tuned in, but I always typically say, "Hey, Mom." She's not an internet person, but maybe somebody will show her this video. So hello, Mom, and hello, wife Tina, just in case. I'm kind of when I get on TV, I always like to say hello to the family. So I really appreciate it. And as Blake mentioned, Fred Deese, CEO of Visual Connections, managing partner of Mile Marker 10 and a couple other more businesses that I will talk about during this time. I'm honored to be here.
Yeah, Fred, thank you so much. And I think it's always right to say hi, Mom. So this is being recorded, so you can send it to your mom.
Yes.
So we'll put a nice intro and outro on it and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about just your growing up. So you grew up in Atmore, Alabama, outside of Mobile, and then joined the Navy. So we were talking a little bit about your family and what made you decide to join the Navy and to ultimately pursue entrepreneurship. So, but it'd be great, I think, for when people see somebody like yourself who's started several multi-million-dollar companies, you've done it in government contracting, you've done it in other spaces, folks look at that and go, oh, well, wouldn't that be nice? I wish I could do that, right? And it's like the rank structure. Like you start out at a certain level and you work your way up, right? And I think we can break down or demystify that process. So if you would kind of take people back to your graduating from high school, thinking about your next move and how that ultimately led to that, to you're pursuing a career in technology.
Definitely. And I appreciate that, Blake. So as Blake mentioned, I'm from a very small town, Atmore, Alabama. We call it LA, Lower Alabama. And it is about 40 miles east of Mobile. For people who don't know where Mobile is at, it's about 40 miles north of Pensacola, Florida. If people don't understand that, Google map it, you'll see a very small town on the border of Alabama and Florida. So I'm originally from there. I spent my entire life there, graduated from high school. As I was looking to graduate from high school, I really didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, Blake. I really didn't have any idea. At the time I was working at Pizza Hut as a cook and a cut man, which I was really good at. Also, too, I worked at a full service gas station. So about a week before I graduated, there's a Navy recruiter came through to get, their cars filled up. And at the time, that's the safe route coming from Birmingham to get to Pensacola, Florida. They come through Atmore. So the recruiter asked a group of us, what were we doing when we graduated high school next week? And some of my friends had, go work for their dad and so on and so on. So I didn't have any of those plans. I come from a single family home, my mom and five kids. It was 5 of us. And I really didn't have any plans besides continue to work at Pizza Hut. So I told the guy I didn't know. He was like, what about the Navy? I said, okay, sounds good. I think that was on like a Tuesday. So he said, hey, give me your address. I'll come by and pick you up. So he came and picked me up Saturday. So he came and introduced to my mom, came and picked me up Saturday. I went and took the test, the ASVAB test for the Navy. Unfortunately, that morning, I failed that morning. And then that afternoon, I barely passed. I think at the time, it was like a 39 or something. It was horrible. I think they just recently raised it to like 45. So I finally passed it. They told me, we have this great program for you. It's called Deck Seamanship. For all the Navy people out there, you already know the setup. Deck Seamanship is basically a deckhand, but it gives you opportunity to explore other careers. So he took me back home that Saturday night, and my mom was excited because I'm the youngest, and she was like, okay, that's it, she's done. And Sunday night, I got on the plane, first time getting on the plane, being a country boy, and I was in Great Lakes. Sunday night, boot camp Monday.
So they put you up at like the Hyatt Hotel for the Navy boot camp? Is that how that works?
Yeah, right. We actually slept in the bus that night. I get that it was a tactic. We slept in the bus that night. They kept coming to tell us to wake up and so on and so on. So no, we did not sleep at the Hyatt. I think a couple of my Air Force friends, they stayed in the Marriott.
Yeah, it's amazing how people coming into your life at a certain time can change the trajectory,
Yes.
Of your life, and God bless recruiters that can tell a really good story. And
Yes,
I think I would have been. So you join. You're working on the deck. And you go from the deck to the torpedo man to cryptology, which, by the way, I don't like. If you're doing cryptology, I think you probably coded the ASVAB test. So maybe you were just
cheated a little bit,
right? So talk to us a little bit about that, and then I think it'd be good, to get into visual connections and ultimately mile marker 10, because. So for those that don't know about Mile Marker 10, we're Mile Marker 10 and Bunker are putting together a partnership to help share that platform, but it's a government contracting e-learning platform. So it's, I love to use Mike Stedman's phrase from Ironman Boxing, we lift as we climb. So this is something that, had you had this 25, 30 years ago, you would have, your success would have been, your time to success would have been shortened. So, but talk to us a little bit how you navigated that Navy career and how that led to where you're at.
Yeah, definitely. I appreciate that. So been in the Navy, as I was working on the deck, I got an opportunity every time, coming out of the P-way to go to the fantail. the back of the ship, I would go by this magazine shop where, you know, everybody seemed to be having a lot of fun. So every now and then I'll stop by there, and I got a chance to create a good relationship with the chief at the time. And he asked me, you know, what was my, you know, path and career and what I was thinking. I was like, I'm not sure. So he asked if I wanted to cross rate over to torpedoman. And I said, sounds good. It's better than chipping the deck. So he ended up, you know, helping me retake the ASVAB test. I made a little bit better, enough to become a torpedoman. And I ended up cross rating, ended up making, E4, Pet Officer Third Class, as a torpedoman. And I did that within 8 months of going into the military. And lucky enough for me, he got selected to become an ensign. So he took that route, and I was the only one left, and they got another E2 that came on board. So I had to learn really, really fast about how to, you know, handle the torpedoes on board and so on and so on. I ended up having a really, really good career in the torpedo space. I ended up becoming certified on a lot of the gear on the hydraulic side, onboarding torpedoes and different things like that. So that was it was a great career there. And actually I got an opportunity to being in that space as we shifted from Japan, because that was my first duty station. We shifted from Japan to Everett, Washington, you know, by way of being a torpedoman and just getting the opportunity to work with other ships. I ended up getting the opportunity to meet my wife, you know, back in 1998. I had to think about that for a while. It was a long time ago, back in 1998. And, you know, I got an opportunity to meet her, you know, while I was in the Navy. So that's definitely another thing that happened to me great while I was in the Navy.
Yeah, well, and you know, it's something to, you know, I think people look and say, well, you know, I wish I could be that lucky, right? And the reality is like when opportunity presents itself, you took it, and you're open, you know, to ask and open to learning about it. I think as entrepreneurs, we need to continually be open to learning and continue to be open to new opportunities. So you ultimately end up serving as a cryptologist, which leads you into this career of technology. So talk to us just real quickly on you know what how your experience as a cryptologist led you to starting Visual Connections, which is now, you know, a very successful government contracting federal IT services company.
Definitely. Yes, I would a little bit of just a transition. I ended up staying in for the first 4 years as a torpedoman. My wife, she was already a cryptologist, so she got orders to Fort Meade, and I decided to actually get out in 2001. I got out for 8 months. I got out, I worked with Comcast. I got an opportunity to get on the fiber team, the internet team, and I just learned really fast when it comes to dealing with computers and different things like that. So when I went back into the service in December 2001, I ended up retaking my ASVAB. My wife, she taught me some techniques, retaking my ASVAB, and just say I made very well to get opportunity to go in the crypto program. And I got back into the military, and my first duty station was NSA. Got an opportunity to work with a lot of contractors there in Fort Meade. For those who, too many acronyms, National Security Agency there in Fort Meade. And I got an opportunity to work with a lot of great contractors, end up moving to Norfolk, worked there, and got presented with opportunity by Computer Science Corporation to take the early out program in 2004. So I came back in end of 2001, took the early out program. CSC paid my bonus that I had took for 6 years reenlistment for cryptology. And I went to work with CSC at the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency as a senior solution architect, and had a great career working with NGA, worked at ONI, Office of Naval Intelligence, and really got a chance to work with contractors and understand how to start a business. And shortly after, I ended up burning myself out in the Intel space. I took a job in the healthcare space back in 2005 with a mid-sized company called VIPS. End up coming for the interview that night. They was busy, end up having pizza with everyone. I don't even think I actually had an official interview. And finally, like 10 o'clock at night, the two individuals, Joanne Sosnock and Jennifer Kraft, they hired me that night. I'm not even sure if we even had an interview, but they hired me that night, and I started working in healthcare. And shortly after, I started my company in 2007.
Yeah, it's interesting. Having served in all those different organizations, and listening into all of our phone calls. So I guess, are you officially Big Brother then? Like, do we have to go call you to get our information back?
That's funny, Blake. I have my own separate Zoom account away from the company because I don't want the man to be watching me, knowing that I'm the man. So
yeah, I've made a practice of Zoom bombing our other guests and jumping in to say hello. But yeah, so now you've got this breadth of experience. You've served in different capacities, and you say, hey, all right, now I'm going to do this, because I think when people are transitioning out of the military, they're trying to figure out what do I want to do, what does it look like, and Fortune and Forbes says drop out of college, start a tech company, and everything's going to be fine. But the reality is, and the statistics prove that, it's like mostly folks that are mid-career, they have families, they've got some expertise in a particular area, and now they're doing it. So it's actually a much more pragmatic approach to entrepreneurship. So you now have this experience, you start Visual Connections. Who's your first client, and when do you realize you've got something that can turn into something big?
Yeah, definitely. VIPS was actually my first client. I became a subcontractor to them. Actually, it was, I think I'm one of those guys that always have a story. So you guys keep me honest on my timing. And so the story is actually, I was an employee for VIPS, and I started my company, and they was looking to go after an opportunity with CMS, Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. And one of the requirements that they had on there is that they needed a certain percentage to be a service disabled veteran. So they asked me, Fred, are you interested? We understand that you started a company. A gentleman, Gary Calabrese, really still a good friend of mine. And he came to me, he's basically said, hey, this is a great opportunity to bid on this opportunity. Could be worth millions as a subcontractor. Are you interested? I said, yeah, definitely, I'm interested. And he's like, only one caveat. You're an employee, so you can't be a bidding subcontractor and an employee. So today we need you to quit. And without blinking, I said, okay, sounds good. So I ended up quitting that day. It took about 4 to 6 months before the award. I ended up getting a job later on that week, just right up the street. So I ended up taking a job working with Maryland kiosks for his license plate kiosk machines. Ended up taking it. Then about 4 or 5 months later, they gave me a call and said we won. And that was my first opportunity. And I brought on some other consultants and eventually started hiring people and different things like that. So it was a nice, smooth ride. I would tell you, one of the things I always recommend to people and my mentees and proteges is that please have this conversation, with your family about where you want to go and where you want to take your family. Don't just throw them in a car and you end up at the beach and it's like, you know what, we don't even like the beach. So I always tell people to inform them, because it wasn't a good transition coming home telling my wife and kids that I don't have a job. At the time, the kids, they was young, they didn't really care. But telling her I didn't have a job anymore and I was going to explore this great career as being a federal contractor. And I remember what she told me. We was actually driving. She's like, but you don't know nothing about federal contracting. I was like, I will learn.
Right.
And that's what I did. I learned.
Yeah. And it's like, it's one, having, the guts to do it, but then also to be like, again, pragmatic enough to go, I'm going to go get a job with, the Maryland license kiosk so that I can have some income coming in while I'm doing this. And I think there's this false narrative around burning the ships and that like you got to go all in. And you know, Todd Connor, the founder of the Bunkers, a Navy guy like yourself, has a book coming out in the fall around called The Calling, which is all about that. It's like keep your day job until you find your dream job, or until you build that thing, and having the humility to do that as well. I mean, you know, even like Damon John continued to work at Red Lobster, right? Like it's a smart move. So you get your first contract, you're off to the races after 6 months of figuring of agonizing. Did you make the right choice? You know, and what, and then, oh, real quick. So the Q&A is open. So folks, if you've got questions about how do you get into government contracting, how do you do this? What are the pitfalls? You know, where did you sort of find your lane? Things like that. Make sure to be thinking about those and put those in. And while you're thinking of those questions, it'd be great to share a little bit about you got the first contract and now what?
Yeah, at this point is now all about figuring out, how do I grow? So, unfortunately, at the time, the other small business individuals, especially in the minority space, I honestly don't think they knew how to help someone like myself. And I want to believe that. There's a part of me, there's about 10% of me that believes that, they want to keep it all to themselves. But the other 90% believes that they didn't understand how to help someone because their situation was different. The individuals that I knew at the time, they worked for VIPS and they just transitioned and just, essentially was an organization behind the big company VIPS. And so maybe they didn't know how. So I didn't get a lot of help. So I had to spend a lot of time searching the internet. I had to spend a lot of time talking to individuals about how to grow the business outside of the CMS space, outside of the healthcare space. And I ended up getting in contact with a couple individuals that was able to share enough. So I started working, doing some contracts at the VA Veterans Affairs. I worked through the process to become Hub Zone, and a lot of other tricks I started learning about how to bid on opportunities. I always tell people the story is that early in your career, bidding on opportunities for government is one of the most important things you're going to do. I spent about 3 to 4 years bidding as a prime contractor on about 200 proposals. And I lost every last one of them. I didn't win anything. Lucky enough, VIPS, kept me fed and kept me going after contracts under them and, some staffing opportunities. But I struggled in the bidding space a lot. And so eventually I got to the point where I was able to bring on others who had more experience than me and was helping me, get through the process. And very shortly out there, I had said to myself that once I somewhat make it, I will make sure that others coming behind me won't have to take this journey that I had to take.
Well, that really goes well with some of the questions that we've got coming up here. So as a newly registered service-disabled veteran-owned business and HubZone certified business looking for contracts, what are your tips for securing the first one? And what are the things to avoid?
Yeah, great question. Thanks for that question. I would say, look within. I always tell people it's cool and it's great to bid as a prime contractor. But what I say is look from within first. And what that means is if you are transitioning from a Fortune 500 or another small business, work with that company and try to figure out what value you can bring to them, whether it's staff augmentation, rather is doing some work yourself at a discounted rate, but definitely try to work within. So definitely look for those subcontractor and consultant opportunities. And also too is don't be shy about lack of better words, pimping yourself out. Don't be shy about utilizing your own skill set to work as being a CEO and a direct billable person. I did that for 7 years. So I would definitely say start from within. Also, too, one of the things I would add is that get really good at, this is going to sound really, really bad and really, really weird, but get used to being turned down.
Mm-hmm.
Put yourself out there, go to the conferences, have your capability statements. You know, nowadays business card is not a big thing, but have a lot of business cards. Figure out ways to be able to get in front of people that's looking for your type of services that you're offering. And again, do not take it personal when somebody turns you down. You're most likely going to get turned down. I would say in my career, I probably got turned down maybe about 12 to 1,500 times. Do not lose faith. Eventually something will happen for you.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, you think about just folks, the ability to deal with rejection as an entrepreneur. And, you know, you hear people all the time, well, we pitched our thing to 100 investors and 100 of them said no. You're saying I got turned down 1,200 to 1,500 times. And I think it's separating your personal worth and value from the ability to think through it as an entrepreneur, to go, okay, well, what did I do? What didn't work out? And how can I adjust that? And, you know, and looking at how you can be a subcontractor versus being a prime contractor. Correct. But having, frankly, like the mental resiliency to know that, like, this isn't necessarily a reflection upon me. This is a reflection upon how, like, I went after that. Like, I didn't go after that the right way. And breaking it down like you would any after action report. So I'm gonna call out one of our guests. So there's a guest listening that's been a part of the Bunker Labs family for quite a while. So Alexa Madero, she and her team have an organization called Backpacks for Life to serve. Started out to serving veterans that were homeless and putting together backpacks to help folks be able to move forward in life. But in response to COVID, they had the relationships with a few Marines in New Jersey that were doing the textile manufacturing. And they said, hey, I wonder if we can put together some PPE for people. Wow. And so they've now actually started a manufacturing company. Alexa, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's United States Manufacturing Company, USMC. So this, and you know, now they're trying to respond in what was originally just a charitable thing to do and to figure out how to support. Is now there's demand. So the question is, what does the bidding process look like? They've never done it before. They're trying to figure out how to wade into it. It might be something that we'll as we share mile marker 10, I think that will actually tactically walk people through that, but maybe share a little bit about what that looks like.
Yeah, definitely, Alexa. I really appreciate your question, and I hope it's not inappropriate, but please contact me. I would love to be able to, my family of businesses and companies, I love to be able to donate any type of program that has to do with veterans, especially those who are unfortunate, like some of the ones that's out of a home, that's homeless. I want to be able to find a way to help. So Bunker Labs will give you my contact information. I want to find ways how I can help.
Great,
you guys.
we'll do that.
Definitely. Thank you. So I would say, so bidding is definitely an interesting process. I would say once you start your federal contracting company and you got to the point where you have your EIN, you have your DUNS number, you have your cage number, and similar to what Blake said, if none of that makes any sense, on June 8th, shameless plug, milemarket10.com will be doing a soft launch. So you can come there to get some free courses and some very, discounted courses. I think some of the discounts are up to 80% discounts, and they can walk you through it. But essentially, once you have registered with the government, there's one particular site that you can go to is betasam.gov. It used to be called FBO, and I think if you still search it as Fed Biz Ops, it'll still come up. That is a place to start looking for opportunities to bid. But again, bidding is a science. You have to get to the point where you are building the proper pipeline to know what opportunities fit your organization. You're doing what we call capture intel, CI, on who are the incumbent, what type of technology they're looking for, and you understanding some of the price points. Once you do all that, now you have to be able to get a qualified bid out that's going to be compliant. So it is definitely it's a long process, but it's doable. It took me 6 years to get my first prime contract in 2013. I definitely want to try to find ways to help people close that gap and be able to bid as a prime sooner rather than later.
That's great. Well, thank you. So Alexa, we'll make sure to get you all connected, and Liz can help with that. So a question here, what would be key first hires to succeed, or do you recommend consultants at first?
Good question. So I will tell you what I did, and then I can maybe lean into some recommendations. What I did is I ended up going, bidding was my big thing. I wanted to bid as a prime contractor. So my first hire, Nancy Voorhees, shout out to Nancy, how you doing? She still worked for the company. I was actually looking for someone to help me bid and help me write proposals. And she came from the newspaper industry, didn't know nothing about federal contracting. So now you got two of us that knows nothing about bidding, try to bid on contracts, hence the 200 or so bids we lost. But I would say, looking back, I still think when it comes to trying to prepare your organization to go after contracts, having someone that will help you get out of bid is still the smart move to make. Rather you look at that individual as an employee. At the time, mine was an employee hire. I hired Nancy as an employee, or as a consultant. You'll have to look at your own internal finances. Because I was still working on 2 or 3 projects myself, I had the income enough to be able to hire an employee. But I would say focus on someone that can help you bid on opportunities, which include someone that can help you sort of realize your capability statements, get your messaging out for your website so people can start finding you, so you can stop trying to find them.
And how many employees do you have now?
Good question. I think last time I checked, and Teresa, I just noticed I'm doing a lot of name dropping here. But Teresa, she'll probably, I'm in between 75 and 80 employees.
Okay. All right. Yeah. From debating whether or not to hire one to now having, over 70. So,
Yeah.
All right, here's a good question here. So after hearing your story, knowing how challenging and competitive government contracting is, especially today, what are 2 or 3 things you would do differently in starting out? And then I might add, just like, is government contracting, even more challenging when we look at what's going on in the world right now? It's just the turmoil. Governments are supposed to be a place of stability, but when we're having turmoil, how does that affect your ability to do business with the government? So what would you do differently starting out?
I would say what I would do differently. Honestly, even though VIPS, the company that I worked for, which was purchased by General Dynamics, I would recommend bear hugging. I mean, just really, I would, if I would have known what I know now, I would have stuck with that organization and really make sure that I had enough footing to be prepared to be a prime contractor. I think I left the nest a little bit too fast. So that's definitely one of the things that I would do, is to make sure not to leave the nest too fast. Following that, one of the things that I would do differently is that I would have educated myself more about the real meaning behind the customer's always right. My first contract, I was, as being a technologist, I came into that contract and I felt like the technology wasn't good enough. And I expressed that as a technologist, and through that process, I didn't have a good experience as my first prime contract. And it was mainly because not really living and understanding this rule around the customer is always right. I think I would have educated myself a little bit more about customer experience. You know, coming from being a technologist, never having a company before, never really managed people before, the customer sort of experience and how to make sure they, understand where you want to take the contract and making sure that you hear them as the customer is something that I should have boned up on, and making sure I surrounded myself with people who understood the customer. So I would definitely surround yourself with people that understand the type of work and the type of customers that you are going to be working with, and make sure that those people are trustworthy. Because, when you get that opportunity, if you mess that opportunity up, it could be years, if not, decades before you get an opportunity again. And so what I'll add to that, sorry, Blake, what I add
please.
to that is during these times, I mean, it is extremely tough from a standpoint of trying to figure out what part of the federal government you want to support in this age. You sort of look at it from a standpoint, if you are Intel and you start looking at some of the things that's happening in the Intel space, with FBI and others, you start to wonder, is it right for me to work for those organizations? And I think the short answer is that that's up to you, but you need to start having that conversation with yourself and trying to make sure you pick the right type of partner from a government agency perspective. And that's also too, one of the reasons why, I picked and sticking with Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. I truly believe in CMS's mission, trying to make sure that people that's on Medicare, Medicaid, Marketplace, and all the other programs, making sure that they are served properly, making sure that there's enough money available, and making sure that the systems that end up they using and or serve them from a standpoint of payments and different things like that are adequate. And so that's one of the things that I always tell people: pick a client that you believe in, and I think the rest of it sort of makes sense.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, it's sort of, you've got to believe in your product.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And it's easy to look at the dollar signs and say, I'm going to go after this. But after a certain period of time, that's not going to be sustainable. Your heart has to be in it at some point to sustain it. In the short term, it's important to get capital into the company. In the long term, it's important to make sure that you're aligned. And coming from the military world, we often don't look at designing the kind of lifestyle that we want, because we never had the ability to. It's just like, this is what the Marine Corps said, this is what the Navy said, so I'm going to do this. And, I think, as at a time when our nation is reflecting, it's a time important for us to reflect on what it is that, we want to do and can do, and what are our, God-given abilities to be able to help serve, in a big way. So, okay, one or two more tactical questions, and then we'll wrap it up. And I think you might have hit this, but I want to make sure I get this. So he says, Fred, great story, tons of motivation here. Really appreciate it. When you hired your first employee, how did you finance the payroll without a business line of credit? So did you just finance it through the bank of Fred Deese, and because you had a little bit other contracts going or other work coming in? I mean.
Yes, exactly. Yes, I end up working a lot. I worked on multiple contracts, and lucky enough, because of my career in the being digital age, is easy. Unfortunately, if you're a face-to-face, if that's your background, to be say an analyst that has to work on site, it can be a little difficult. But because I was in a position as a software architect, I can work anywhere. So I would have 2 or 3 laptops running at the same time, VPN on one of them, another one is a Mac, another one dialed into the server, So lucky enough, I was able to finance the first. But when it comes to line of credits, I always tell people start sooner rather than later. It is a tough road, when it comes to trying to build credit from a business perspective. So I definitely will recommend when you go there, they're going to, and I always tell people, typically when you go there, they're going to want to give you between $5,000 to $25,000 credit card. That's typically if that's your first interaction with that bank. So I always tell people, take it. And then what you do over the next 6 months, just try to spend as much as you can, of course, without going in debt. Spend as much as you can on that credit card, and then come back, build that relationship with your bank. Come back and say, hey, listen, it's been 4 to 6 months. I've maxed out this credit card. I've got other accounts. I've got other contracts. I start doing this. I've opened up, into other spaces. I'm now not only doing business with healthcare, but I'm also doing business with the Veterans Administration. Just continue to have a conversation with them, and don't worry about being, them being irritated about you constantly calling and talking to them and texting them about your success. That's their job. And so eventually you will get a proper line of credit to be able to help support your business. But that is a struggling thing. If you can't be able to, fund it yourself and or friends and family, it is tough, trying to get that line of credit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's important to know that you've got to be able to figure that out, and hopefully there are things that we can do, or at least advocate for, to make that a little bit easier. All right, I think you might. We've got. Let's do this one. So, what fields of study do you suggest going into to become a contractor? Would it be something in STEM? And she says, I'm a VC employee here. So MPIC investigator. So looking for the best return on investment on education.
Right. So
yeah.
I definitely, and I have two people in mind that I know who that is, but I would say definitely STEM is the space, it's the space to be in. I would definitely say, when you're trying to figure out what type of career entry you're looking into, again, similar to what I talked about from a standpoint of who you do business with first, look from within.
Mm-hmm.
There are, I'm always offering opportunities within my company. If you're looking to move from say an investigator analyst, and you're looking to move into becoming a technical writer, or you're looking to become a data scientist, start engaging internally. Education is great. Going to college is great. Unfortunately, the college path wasn't for me. I barely made it out of high school. So the college path is not for me. But I would say start connecting with individuals around you and start getting their time, an hour, 2 hours a day, or a couple hours a week, and start sitting with them and saying, hey, how do you do what you do? And if it's trying to be a data scientist, or you're trying to be a technical writer, or if you want to be a CEO, I'm more than welcome to have you sit in on my calls to understand, how I do business. You'll probably find out that I'm probably much sillier than you realize. I try to keep it together when I'm out in public, but on my conference calls, I do all kinds of crazy stuff. You'll find me dancing. In some of my groups, we have a cheer dance competition where we turn the music on and see who has the best cheer dance.
That's actually coming up next.
It's coming up next.
Yeah, I've been practicing.
You practicing? You ready? Yeah. Okay. All right. I would say I'm the winner. I take platinum every meeting. Every meeting I win. But honestly, I would
very
say,
humble of you.
I would say definitely check from within, and then try to identify some certificates and or courses if you want to go the college route that sort of align to your career goal. And final thing I would say, express to your managers, to senior leadership, where you're looking to try to go. If you keep it to yourself, nobody will never know that you're open for that position, because there could be an opportunity where we're looking for a junior resource. You may not have the years experience, but you might meet the education background, and we might be interested in trying to bring you over into another contract. And I would say, definitely try to explore that. And I will also too, for the Visual Connections employees that's on the phone call, please utilize the education reimbursement. I put that in place for you guys to utilize that. So if you're going to college or you're taking a certification class, please get with HR, and so you can get reimbursed for that. I don't think enough people use that, and I'm tired of using that money at happy hour.
I love it. All right. Well, I will. Your teammate can follow up with you. We'll leave their identity obscured for now. So as we start to wrap it up, I want to say thank you. I think it's if you look, reflecting on hearing your story, it's you've never been afraid of taking an opportunity or saying yes to things. So many people are really good at saying, well, like I was going to join the Navy, or I was going to go do this, but but they didn't, or or I was going to go start my company, but I didn't. And the reality was, it was hard. You didn't start where you wanted to start. You ran into roadblock after roadblock, and now you're in a position to where you're head of multiple companies at Mile Marker 10, Visual Connections, part of Blue Ocean Holdings, which would be great to talk about what that is real quickly before we wrap up. But it's what I think I want people to walk away with, and you can tell them what you want them to walk away with, but what I want them to walk away with is the courage to jump in, and to do it, and to be humble, and to come with an attitude of being a continual learner, and that it's okay to ask for help. It's smart to ask for help, and that you don't need to learn from your own experiences. You can and fail. You can go find people that have done it before. So I think you said June 8th is the launch or soft launch of Mile Marker 10. You'll start to see more of that coming out from our comms. But if you would kind of talk, real quickly about Blue Ocean Holdings, because I think that's something that's a way to help people that are already in the space. And then we'll wrap it up.
Oh, definitely. And this is where the Marine Colonel, my partner, Derek Campbell, comes really good. He explains Blue Ocean Holdings really well. So, but essentially, it's a boutique firm that pairs federal contractors with tech to be able to help improve both sides' valuation. And honestly, Visual Connections became one of the first clients of Blue Oceans, from a standpoint of as I was trying to figure out how to take Visual Connections, right now it is burning about $35 million in revenue, how to take it to the next level where I can be able to hire more veterans, hire more individuals that can work for my company, how to take it to the next level. And what that requires is funding. Mm-hmm. And as I start looking for minority investors and start dealing with the private equity firms, I found that it was challenging because they was like, you don't have any intellectual property, IP. You're all services. All of your contracts is with CMS. So I started thinking, how do I provide a better pathway for others? And that's when I came up with Blue Ocean Holdings. Derek and I, actually, Colonel Derek and I was up one night, and we just came up with it from another one of our good friends. We kind of stole the name from him. He mentioned the term Blue Oceans, which is a strategy. Those of you that read can definitely research that. And we came up with it, and the main part was to try to find opportunities to help companies improve their valuation by offering them all different types of services to help enhance what they're already doing. So it's definitely, I look forward to that company on being able to try to help more people out, and also to add on top of your, Blake, your shameless plug around Mile Marker 10, coming out June 8th, there's going to be some free courses that's going to be offered in the soft launch. You can actually go to milemarker10.com right now and sign up to be able to get free announcements around what we're doing, different types of free courses, and be the first that comes in. There's going to be a very special surprise for early adopters that go in there and put your email address in. It's very easy, first name, last name, email address, and we'll get in contact with you. So I really, really appreciate the opportunity for Bunker Labs and Bunker Labs family, especially Blake. I really, really appreciate this opportunity to be able to get my story out there and to find ways of how I could help more people in this industry.
Well, Fred, thanks very much. What's your last sign off or word of advice for those that are looking to follow in your footsteps?
Yes, definitely. I actually stole this from another Marine. Don't be afraid to build the plane in flight. And it's really based off what you just said. It's okay to jump. Get in. If you got anything from a vehicle, or let's say in this case, an airplane, that's yourself. If you're at that point where you have a seat, you got an engine, you got wings, don't worry about the cockpit. Don't worry about all that other stuff. Jump, build a plane in flight. And if you surround yourself with the right type of people that's going to help you build that plane and take them on that journey, to include your family, all will go well. I promise you that.
Well, Fred, thank you very much. You can go to milemarker10.com. That'll launch on June 8th, and go to bunkerlabs.org for more. We'll be continuing this series of highlighting entrepreneurs that are in the fight, and providing you perspectives from the past, and also real tangible resources. So invite you to go to bunkerlabs.org, and thank you, U.S. Navy veteran and successful serial entrepreneur, Mr. Frederick Deese. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Frederick, so much. And thanks, Blake. I have dropped all of the links, actually, that Frederick mentioned during this conversation, so you can go to Mile Marker 10. If you have any questions, as always, please email townhall@bunkerlabs.org. I think a few people actually dropped questions there at the end into the Q&A box. So I encourage you to email us at townhall@bunkerlabs.org, and we will get your questions answered. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.